the baby boomers' secret plot forcing their kids to pay their bills.
Hey everybody. Today's legal question is, what are filial laws? Essentially, can an adult child be made to pay for the care of a parent?
The baby boomers' secret plot forcing their kids to pay their bills. So, guys, after doing some research, I discovered that there is a secret plot in place by the baby boomers to force their adult children to pay their bills, as half of all baby boomers have literally nothing saved for retirement. Watch the end of the video to fully understand what this secret plot is by the baby boomers, how this will affect their adult kids, being the millennials and Gen X, and what the social repercussions of this will actually be. And now let's just go ahead and jump right back into the video.
It's a pretty hefty question. Before we get there, however, I'd like you to consider a friend going through a what-if scenario that creeped into their lives, but they were fully prepared because you shared this video. We would appreciate it, as will they. I'm Valerie Zametti, an estate planning attorney in New York and New Jersey, and we're here to educate everyone for free. So please drop your questions for us so together we can help folks before something occurs in their life. Now, filial laws essentially say that an adult child is responsible for the basic needs or medical needs of their parent. This would happen if they're sort of in the in-between of being able to pay for those expenses themselves or apply and qualify for government benefits through, say, Medicaid. So where does the child fit in, and does this get used? At one point or another, there was upwards of, I think, 40 of the states that had these laws. We're down to about half of the states that have these laws on the books. However, and I've never seen it used before in New York or New Jersey. New York does not have the laws. New Jersey does. But the laws themselves, other than maybe a state or two, aren't really utilized. We don't see that the states or the counties, which are separately, I guess, administering these laws, if they are used, implementing them. I would say it'd be a hard press to figure out a way to not only administratively manage this, but I don't know. I feel like it hasn't been utilized for a reason. I'm not going to get into all of my judgments and feelings on it, but other than a couple of states, they're not really enforced as of now, but they're on the books, which means it could happen.
Guys, this is a very serious situation. I want you guys to think about this. So basically, I talked about it in another video where, everything is going downhill for the boomers right now. They are the fastest group of people ending up homeless. And I talked about that they were going to start trying to force their kids. They'll basically vote to force their kids to subsidize their care. And a lot of boomers are now turning to their adult children to provide for them food, shelter, housing. Well, then someone commented, this is the reason why they hate the manosphere, because the manosphere is not a place to hate women. The manosphere is a place for knowledge, cultivating knowledge amongst men. Someone responded on my video, the boomers deserve their fate, referencing the fact that they're ending up homeless, they're ending up with heightened levels of dementia and poverty. Well, Ray responded by saying, wait till you look up filial laws. And he actually inspired me to make this video for you guys. Apparently, these boomers can sue their children, and the child can go to prison for a year if the court finds they're not taking care of their parents. Apparently, 30 states have the filial law in place. They're trying to say we're supposed to feed and provide a roof over their head. So as you can hear what this attorney said, it is actually utilized in some states, although a lot of states do. It is not enforced in many states. Now, when I say enforced, it's not so much as used, all right? But it doesn't mean that it cannot be used. To make this very clear, these baby boomers, if they have adult children, and their adult children are like, yeah, we're not going to help you. If they know that their adult children have the means to help them, I will guarantee you it will literally be like a domino rally of collapsing. These boomers are not going to go live on the streets if they can avoid it. They will use these laws against their adult children to force their adult children to take them in and to provide. Guys, these are some bad apples, just like I call Gen Z bad muffins. The boomers are some bad apples. They will use these laws against their children to force their children to subsidize their living. All right? The same boomers that kicked us out when we were not even 18 in some cases. A lot of people got kicked out before they were 18. A lot of Gen Xers have the same story. All right? My father told me when I was a little kid, at 14, you need to get the fuck out. At 5 years, 5 or younger, he was telling me, 14, get out. All right? By 14, get the fuck out. And this is how the boomers are. These are some nasty people. When I was suffering during the '08 financial crisis, bro, I mean, I had a bachelor's degree from a prestigious university, and it had all these certifications. And this is something like a lot of people graduate from Ivy League schools, and they do not have what I had, and I could not land a decent job. All right. I could not land a decent job. Like, I was basically working for McDonald's money, and I was being taken advantage of. We were all being taken advantage of. During that period of time, you had law firms telling new lawyers that they will pay the minimum wage, and experience is a plus. So they were basically saying they will hire lawyers with experience and give them minimum wage. This happened. These are things that happened during the Great Recession. All right. It was literally hell on earth. So we can only imagine what the depression will actually look like. The new depression. And, the boomers could give less of a rat's ass. My father, he watched me suffer. He watched me starve. I was working for minimum wage, and I had no money to buy food. I was basically just working to go to work. All right. I got a job working as a security guard, and I was making minimum wage, and they weren't paying me enough that I could even buy food. It was an absolute nightmare for me. And this is and he basically saw me starving, and he laughed. These are people who grew up during the best of times. They had great lives. They always had food. They always had shelter. It was absolutely insane. And they grew up like Gen Z. And as a result of that, they had, life was great for these people. But they're very mean people. Gen Z, for example, they're not going to want to pay phone bills for their children. A lot of Gen Zers are like, oh, well, I'm not going to give my kids cell phones. The reason why they don't want to give their kids cell phones is because they don't want to pay cell phone bills for their kids. All right? Things like private school, they're not going to send their kids to private school because they're not going to pay private school bills. Gen Z is going to heavily neglect their children. And I've seen a lot of Gen Xers that are like, well, I raised my kids already, so my grandkids will go straight to the state. And some of them have already said, like, I let my grandkids go to the state because I'm not raising any more kids. Gen Z they are just like the baby boomers. They are not fit to be parents. They're doing like abusive things to their kids on the internet, like on TikTok for views. Really nasty stuff. All right. They're just like the boomers. Like, I call them bad muffins. Boomers are bad apples. And what they are plotting right now is extremely evil because these people are broke. They don't have it.
More than 2/5 of baby boomers are nearing retirement without retirement savings. That fact may surprise you if you are a typical white-collar worker at a large corporation with a generous retirement plan, but many Americans work for smaller companies that don't offer retirement savings, or they are self-employed, or they live paycheck to paycheck. In the 55 to 64-year-old boomer age group, according to the census, 58% of Americans own retirement accounts, and that's a problem. Without a retirement account, most retirees count on Social Security, but the average monthly Social Security check to a retired worker is only around $1,800, not very much. If the goal is to retire in relative comfort, Americans know, according to surveys, that they will need probably more like $1 million, but the average retirement account held just over $100,000 at the close of 2022.
The cold hard truth is that many baby boomers will institute and use laws, specifically the filial laws, to force their children to provide aid. Like I said, apparently these boomers can sue their children, and the children can go to prison for a year if the courts find they're not taking care of their parents. And apparently 30 states have the filial laws in place. They're trying to say we're supposed to feed and provide a roof over their heads. And while the laws are not commonly used in most states, the fact remains that the laws do exist. And as things get harder and the state cannot subsidize the boomers, I guarantee you, rather than go and be homeless, the way that some of their children have been and experience ups and downs towards the end of their lives, they will try to live off their kids and pass the bill on to their kids. And if they have kids who've done very well for themselves, they're basically going to say that, hey man, the party needs to keep going. All right. If their kids don't want them to live in their homes, the boomers have no conscience. The mentality of the boomers is this: they don't want to die, they don't want to suffer, they don't want to struggle. All right. And it doesn't matter what happens to anyone else, because that's the way they've always lived their lives. It's about me, 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 me. They're going to do whatever they have to do to survive and thrive, even, And guys, they sold out our futures while we were in diapers. That's the loop. That's the boomers. They don't care. So we're going to basically be left with shouldering them as a burden much later on into their life. It's going to be an extraordinary hardship for many of us. And again, the boomers, they absolutely don't care. They don't care about our futures. They never have. They don't care about us. George Carlin said it best. These are really bad people. They're bad apples. Just like Gen Z are bad muffins, the boomers are bad apples. They never cared about us. They never cared about anyone else but themselves. And they're going to be in desperation mode. Half of all the boomers don't have any savings at all. And only 30% of the boomers that do have savings have less than $100,000 in savings. This is ridiculous. All right. So they can't survive on $100K. All right. The average boomer spends $53,000 a year. That's safe, and they're going to try to live off that with Social Security, especially with inflation rising rapidly and Social Security not keeping up with inflation. Many of them are going to be in desperate situations. Now, of course, a lot of millennials will not be able to provide for their parents, but I'm telling you right off the bat, it does not matter if the boomers, it doesn't matter if a millennial is renting a room. The boomer will basically say, listen, you're going to have to give me a place to sleep in that room. It doesn't matter if they have a studio or a little apartment or any of that. The boomer will do anything to prioritize its own survival. This is the way that the boomers operate. Back in the 1990s, early 1990s, there was a researcher, and a feminist researcher, and she wanted to basically prove that there was a culture of grape on college campuses. So she went to college campuses and she surveyed a bunch of women, and no matter what she tried to do, she could not prove that there was a culture of grape on these campuses. So what she did was she redefined the definition of grape to basically include essentially any unwanted, not only touch, but conversation, or essentially anything that makes a woman uncomfortable. This means it could be everything ranging from eye contact, a comment, or essentially anything off that line. And she basically said, have you ever been graped, or basically put in a scenario where you felt uncomfortable based on something that someone said, or a touch, or even an eye contact, or even a stare. And a lot of women were like, okay, yeah, of course. Okay, then they say, and so then she went, okay, so yeah, that counts. That also counts as a form of a violation of physical intimacy, or if you understand what I'm saying. And so basically, and that's why they basically say grape or a violation of physical intimacy. You understand what I'm saying? And they equate them to the same. So now they're able to turn around and say that, almost virtually every woman has experienced this over the course of their life. That was a construct of the baby boomers. They did all of this. All right. You have to understand, the baby boomers were in their 30s in the 1990s. Okay. They were in their 30s in the 1990s. And George Carlin was warning us about these people in the 1990s. I've come to realize it's not age that makes a person corrupt. It's not that you become more corrupt as you get older. In fact, people often become more conservative as they get older. If you look at the people that are currently voting for the left and voting for Biden and Harris and all of this, These are a lot. These people tilt older. A lot of these people are much older. Okay, over half of all baby boomers support Joe Biden, support Kamala Harris. Over half. This is a very intriguing statistic. Why? Because they want to maintain the status quo. I remember when Trump was running for president the first time, people were saying, who are the ones, who's the this candidate. People went around saying this candidate took all of this money from private corporations and banks and so forth, and they were like, what? Holy cow, Trump did that? And they were like, no, it's Hillary. What? And people were like, what? This is crazy stuff, y'all. This is crazy. The boomers did all of this. All of the guys, all the way that modern women are, it was all a construct of the boomers. I want you to consider that. That whole rebellion in the 70s, those were the boomers. The boomer generation spanned 18 years. So the people in the 70s were the first generation of the baby boomers. They were the first generation of the baby boomers, or the youngest, or the youngest of the silent generation. So they were cusp boomers, and they had that same culture. Like Joe Biden, he is not actually a boomer. He is a cusp boomer. He was born. He's like 81 now, so he was born a little bit earlier in the 40s, but he still has those same ideologies. So these people have been around for a very long time. The first wave of the boomers were the ones to say that, voting rights and this, it was not enough. They wanted equal access. They wanted, they were burning bras, and they became very angry and aggressive. Don't get me wrong, the suffragettes were also, there were some very serious issues with the suffragettes, but which are the first generation of feminists, supposedly. However, the second generation of feminists, who were the baby boomers, the first generation of baby boomers, they were the people that were angry and discussing women's liberation, and they were getting into a lot of really questionable stuff that we can't really talk about here. But they're the ones who introduced a lot of this stuff. And then come the 90s, there was, third wave feminism, 90s feminism, where, I don't need no man, I'm Miss Independent, I'm Ally McBeal, a lot of that BS. And that's when they started with this whole thing where they were going to start using the laws to unfairly prosecute men and label men and change the definitions. Like, for example, you had someone like Andrea Dorquin, and this is a woman who wanted to reduce the male population down to 10% to make it more manageable. This woman was filled with absolute amounts of hatred. And if men ever said the types of things that Andrea Dorquin was saying, they would be banned from society. Okay? It would be classified as a form of terrorism. And yet it's become very legal for women to discriminate against men and to say absolutely horrible things and put laws and policies in place to destroy the lives of men and illegally arrest men, confiscate our property, and absolutely destroy our lives while gaslighting society. This is what the boomers did. All of this crap, all of the hippie garbage, all of the stupid policies, the fall of the education system. Why is the education system such garbage today? The boomers took out shop. They took out home economics. They took out all of these classes that were very useful, and they replaced them with garbage like more American history and class and calculus. And what the hell are you doing with calculus in high school? I understand some of you like, oh well, I love calculus. Yeah, but it does not help the average person. All right. You know what should help the average person? Understanding arithmetic like the back of your hand, being able to read, write, and understand arithmetic. You need the very basics down. Once you have those basics down, you can basically conquer everything else practically on your own. That's what a lot of great scientists have done. Guys, it's a sick thing that these people have done. And their final act is to basically take whatever is left. I mean, they took everything from their kids. They cleaned the meat from the bone and they sucked the marrow dry. And now they're coming back for the bone. And I warned you guys about this years ago. I told you guys who these people are and what they were up to. And now we are seeing it in full play. We are 100% seeing it in full play with the boomers. All right. They never gave a damn about anyone else but themselves. All right. And now they're all afraid to pass away. They're afraid to die. And they're going to do everything and anything to keep the party going. While I was there busting my butt, I had my boomer relatives were out partying at midnight into their 70s. Like, what the guys, I still can't believe it. I used to listen to me. I had a boomer aunt. She's still alive. And I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe this crap. I would call her sometimes very late. And I would say, oh, she's probably sleeping. And then she would let me know, no, I was out partying, having a good time. And I'm thinking, wait, aren't you 75 years old? Yeah, man. Yeah, man, you got to enjoy life while you still can. Are you out of your damn mind? Guys, they're out in the streets, all right? This is, guys, the boomers going on these vacations. And the boomers don't really sleep like that. I want you to understand something. Like, there's this notion that the boomers are all in bed by a certain time. That's a fucking lie. The boomers are up at all different times of the night, all right? This is something that separates Gen X from the millennials. Gen X knows who the boomers are. We grew up with them. We understand these people, all right? A lot of boomers, they don't go to bed early. A lot of that's like silent generation, all right? Our greatest generation, early to bed, early to rise. The boomers are up all fucking night, man. Especially those who are now retired. They're up all night, drinking, smoking, watching CNN. This is the lifestyle that they live, eating, getting fatter. This is the kind of life that they live. They don't really sleep like that. They're up at 4 a.m. All right, they're up at 4 a.m. and it's not because they just woke up early. No, they never went to sleep. It's something that I learned about them. It is 100% something that I learned about the baby boomers. Okay, they really enjoyed the hell out of their lives, and they never cared about their kids. They never cared about the future of their kids. All they cared about was having fun. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's about living life, man. Yeah, man. Guys, I used to say this. About the 80s and when they had the whole crack epidemic, and I said that it was not a race thing. All right? The boomers were bad. The boomers were some bad apples. And I told you guys, Grandma Becky was a legendary crackhead. It was something that spanned across many generations. They were bad apples, man. I refer, do you remember the whole concept? I said a hole is a hole boomers. These people they never gave a damn. All right. These were a lot of these individuals because they were hippies. These were very immoral individuals. Like there was a lot of sexual immorality that stemmed from that generation. And it was terrible. A hole is a hole. A hole is a hole. These people are the reason why so much of this garbage, woke culture, and this crap has taken over our lives. They were living this type of life. They were doing a lot of degenerate things. All right. This all came from the boomers. This is not something that started with the millennials. This is not something that started with Gen X. This is something that came from the boomers and members of the silent generation. Okay? During the 60s, you had this niche, you had the first group of these people that were doing this stuff, and the boomers basically got latched onto it because they were very narcissistic. They're very, very narcissistic. And even if they didn't identify as boomers, as hippies, they were still living that hippie lifestyle privately. George Carlin talked about all the drugs that they did. Okay? It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll for these people. And then the 90s came along and they realized that they were getting old and they didn't like it. They were staring down the barrel of middle age. And they started passing all of these policies to make life harder for the future generations. And they began borrowing. They started borrowing from the future. Like they started using these accounting principles that we've never even heard of, where it allows you to take debt and shift it to the future so that, it'll be paid for by a future generation. This voodoo mathematics, basically. It is voodoo mathematics, and this is why they hate the manosphere. Because as I'm discussing this right now, some one of you guys will just pop up in the comments and completely explain the concept. Completely explain the damn concept. That's why they don't like the manosphere. It's not because of misogyny, because the manosphere mostly has evolved so much that it's moving away from even discussing women. Men have already come to, we're in the conclusion phase right now. We were in the salute, we were in the, we were in the initially the assessment phase. All right. So basically, we were basically trying to figure out what was going on. Then we went to the solutions phase where we began creating solutions. Now we're in the conclusion phase where we've instituted those solutions, and now we are concluding this experiment. We're trying to figure, we're in the phase where we're trying to figure out what the problem was with women. All right, what is it, and how do we what to do about it? Then we entered into solutions, and we got MWA, men walking away. We got MGTOW. We got soft guy era. So now we have a entire game plan of how to deal with this. We got passport kings, which is a part of MWA, men with alternatives, men walking away. And as a result of that, well, we have a slew of solutions. And then we, and men have been taught, be strong, not because you want a woman, but because you need to take care of yourself. You want to be in good shape so that you can survive. You don't want to struggle in life. You do not want to make women the center of your life. So we have solutions right now. Are there men and Sims who are not going to fall in line? Obviously, we don't give a shit about them. All right. But we have our solutions. We are in the conclusion phase right now where we're wrapping this shit up and we're moving on to focus on things that matter. For example, how does money actually work? How does money actually get value? Where does, who controls all of the money? Who's actually running our world? Like, we're starting to ask a lot of questions. This is what they don't like. This is why they want to keep you separated. They want to keep you stiff. They want to keep you fat. They want to keep you demoralized. They want to keep you. They want to keep you They want to keep you divided. This is how it operates. That's the reason why they're going after the manosphere, or any man or any guy who's just even has a wink of possibly being influenced by the manosphere, because they want men and boys to be fat. They don't want you to work out. They don't want you to go to the gym. They don't want you to take care of yourself. They don't want you to be healthy. They want you to be demoralized. They basically want you to be something that they can control easily. All right. But it's the only thing that's going to happen is they're only going to push more men out of society, more boys out of society. You're going to watch guys going forward. If they fully institute these things and it starts to happen, all right, the media will start praising it, but you're going to start to see massive declines in the number of boys, even completing high school, even middle school. You're going to see extreme levels of anxiety rising among boys. You're going to see self-control alterations rising. You're going to see boys completely dropping out of society. It's already happening with Gen Z, where they're saying that there are like there's almost a million NEETs in there's almost a million Gen Z NEETs in the UK, which is unbelievable. Not in education, employment, or training. I've already said that Gen Alpha is going to be a large prison population, because that's how the baby boomers handle things. They throw you in prison. All right. So they're gonna throw all of these kids in prison because a lot of them are messed up as a result of the events of 2020. The boomers did this. They took these kids. You have to understand, for the average person, like the events of 2020, where we had to basically separate ourselves from one another. We had to basically, wear certain coverings, and we had to do a lot of things. It was very hard. You need to realize that for many of these kids, that was half of their lives. That was quarter of their lives. And they missed very important developmental intervals. Like when they're growing up, you have to socialize kids starting in kindergarten, and they basically learn how to control some of their behaviors and regulate certain things from their peers. They didn't get these experiences. All right. So you end up with children who are very, very clingy, who are very whiny, who are very aggressive and angry. It's easily upset, and it's a serious issue. And of course, like I said, the baby boomers don't care, because they're like, oh, we're not going to be here anyway. It's going to be someone else's problem. All right. The truth is, they want the world to end with them. Every generation before the boomers, they fought tooth and nail to ensure that the generations that came after them would have better lives than they did. Their promise was always the future generation will always do better than we did. But that stopped with the boomers. Gen X Gen X did not do as well as the boomers. The millennials did even worse than Gen X. Gen Z is dropping out of society, and Gen Alpha doesn't have a prayer. And then what do the boomers do? They began making threats to people like me, telling me that they're gonna come after me and silence me. All right, that they have power. They're not all of them have one foot in the grave, and they can deal with me and teach me a lesson. It just essentially validates everything that I've said about them. All right, this is who they are as people. When I was in college, working on my master's, I had this professor. I absolutely love this lady. I loved her so much, but she was one of these people. And, we used to talk, and I understood her lifestyle, and I know I didn't make a mistake about it. But one thing that I would get on her about, for example, I could speak to her on Christmas Eve because I had papers to turn in. And she knew it would kind of irritate me because I understood her lifestyle. She would, she was very, very busy. She was an academic. The problem is that she didn't have a lot of free time. She didn't have a lot of free time. So I'm like, hey, professor, as I'd call her at home. Hey, professor, I'm working on my paper. I need to do this and this and this. She's like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, professor, what are you doing? Huh? Professor, what are you doing? I'm at home. I understand. What are you doing at home right now? I'm watching CNN. Why the heck are you? This was a real thing. Why the heck are you watching CNN? You have very little free time. Why are you spending your free time watching CNN? Because I like it. It's so good. Oh my God. Jesus. This is how the boomers live. Guys, the average age of people watching like cable and television right now is like 65 years old. It's all boomers. It's not even Gen X. All right. A lot of Gen Xers have completely abandoned network television. Okay. This is like millennials, Gen X. It's boomers. Why do you think The Golden Bachelor is so popular right now? The Golden Bachelor and I believe it, is more popular than all of the other seasons of The Bachelor. Who are the ones watching The Bachelor? The boomers. So now they're the stars of the show, and no one loves the boomers more than the boomers. You have them calling themselves the greatest generation. They dropped an article recently. I was trying to find it for you guys, where they said the boomers were the greatest generation. And even some of the boomers were basically commenting like, no, that's not true. Come on, you can't say that. The greatest generation was the greatest generation. But that's the narcissism of the baby boomers right now. All right? That's the extraordinary narcissism of these bad apples. They are extremely narcissist. They don't care about anyone else. They wanted all the toys. They said they want it all, and they're going to get it all. The future for a lot of these people is that they're going to find themselves in increased states of poverty and destitution. And millennials and Gen Xers don't have the money to come to their rescue. But like I said, there's going to be a plot twist. And these people will use the law against you. They'll basically show up at your door and they'll say that, my kids are not treating me very fairly. They're not providing food for me. They're declining to feed me. I don't know what to do. This is how the boomers are going to operate. They're going to force their kids to take care of them. They're going to force their kids to provide for them. If you live in a room, you're going to have to give them a spot. You're going to have to give them food. You're going to have to make some compromises. This is how it works. And again, they will use the system against you. They'll play senile. They'll drop hints that you're not taking proper care of them, and they'll have you thrown in prison. And chances are you won't go to prison immediately, but you'll get like a misdemeanor or whatever. And it just are warnings and just enough to mess with your life, so that you're like, you better know that you better take care of these people and give them whatever you need. So they're going to burden you, just like they treated you like shit when you're growing up. Their final act is they're going to suck everything out of you, because they don't care. And in their minds, they're gonna use religion against you and say that this is what God wants, and God wants you to honor your father and your mother. And if you won't do it, then this is what the law is for. The law is for, and God is on their side. They pick and choose, and they use religion however they choose to use it as a weapon to get what they want. They are corrupt as hell. They are the most corrupt generation of people. They are the most corrupt generation of people out there, and they're not going to stop. Okay, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until the very end. All right, these are not good people. They're just like Gen Z. They're a bunch of bad apples. Just like Gen Z are a bunch of bad little muffins. The boomers are some bad apples. It has nothing to do with their age. This is who they've always been. They were on the streets from the moment they hit their 20s. They took over the political landscape, and they began voting in these policies as a hive mind to make themselves richer, and while everyone got poorer. This is how they operated. And if you call them on some of them, they're like, well, oh, it's like when I've spoken to these boomers, I never smoked pot, I didn't use drugs, I went to school and I'm an electrician and I did all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, and how about your peers? What did your parents do? I can't knock you on that. Yeah, man. Have a good time. Have a good one. Guys, this has happened to me. They're bad people. They're bad people. Even the ones, when they try to challenge me, I'll simply say to them, yeah, and how about your peers? They all run away. They either run away or they start trying to gaslight me. Like, oh, they're good. Oh, they're good. I know, blah, 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 blah. Or they disappear. Let me tell you how the boomers work. Like a lot of Gen Zers, they'll leave these crap comments and then they'll get scared and delete them. That's the same shit with the boomers. All right? They'll talk shit to you and then they'll run away. All right? And they're like, oh, no one's running away from you. No one's running away from you. You think I'm scared of you? All right? No one's running away from you. And then they vanish. That's how the boomers are. And I hear, MK Fitness has talked to me about the boomers. He said that they're over there in the Philippines walking around with fat bellies, drunk, acting like they own everything. Okay? This is who they've always been. It has nothing. They haven't gotten more corrupt with age. They were always corrupt. Gen Z is an extremely corrupt group of people. Very, very corrupt. Very, very shady. It's a load of BS that people will think, oh, when they're old, oh my gosh, these people have gotten so corrupt and old. Guys, these people, a lot of them are still in their teens and they are extremely corrupt. It's about the nature of the individual. It's about the personality and that they grow up with. All right. A lot of people who, they are the same people they were at 18 and they're the same people that they are often older in life. You learn more, and sometimes a lot of people become more humble as they get older because life humbles them. Not the boomers. All right. They had so much control of society and they did so much evil in society and no one was able to stop them that it only got worse. Many of them are going to see poverty and destitution, but a lot of them are going to use these laws to control and destroy the lives of their kids to enrich their own lives as they're, until the very end. That is the future that we are looking at with this group of extremely bad apples. Bad apples. Guys, subscribe to our newsletter for my personal thoughts, insights, and a free copy of my new guide, The Digital Nomad Blueprint. Click the link in the description to get your free copy. And also subscribe to the Angry Guy Clips channel, where we post shorter videos and a video responses. And also the Angry Guy Live channel, where we live stream. Both channels are linked in the description. And finally, of course, guys, protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Click the link in the description to get started and support the channel. What do you guys think regarding all of this? The baby boomers have a secret plot to force their kids to pay their bills. Let me know your thoughts and we'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And share.